How We Met Your Mother is the How I Met Your Mother rewatch podcast with me, Josh Radnor, and series co-creator Craig Thomas. Follow How We Met Your Mother wherever you get your podcasts.
You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Money Talk with Tiff. I'm your host, Tiffany Grant, and I am back with a guest that was on the podcast before. I have John Briggs on the line. He was on episode 350. So if you didn't listen to that one yet, go back and listen because we're going to build on what we talked about in that last episode. So hey, John, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on again. So let's just jump right into it. Back in 2024, I believe that's when, we talked last time, you taught my audience the 3.3 rule. And again, if you're listening and you haven't heard it yet, go back to episode 350. Today, I want to know what it cost you to learn that lesson. So I know your story. You said your wife told you at 2 a.m. that she was a single parent, which I know hurt to the core. And you were grinding out 18-hour days, making serious money, but quietly losing your family. So when did hungry enough become hollow enough?
Yeah, so back in 2010, I thought I was doing everything right. A magic formula, which was I was going to wake up at 5 o'clock, get into work by 5 o'clock, crank out some tax work, and then during the normal 9 to 5 hours, do all the client-facing things. And then after 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., go back to doing actual tax work. And I did that. And this is what I was told to do. The hustle culture teaches me, guess what? The more hours you put in, the more money you make. It's like, oh, this is like a magic formula. This is awesome. And I was crushing it, doing all that. And I came home one evening and the lights were on and, I was pretty busy. So honestly, I'm like, oh, Kara's waiting up for me. She's my wife. I'm like, maybe she wants to get intimate. Like, this is great. She's waiting up for me.
Typical man.
Yep. And, she didn't have that type of smile on her face when I saw her. The reality is she had no smile on her face. And then she just completely broke down. And, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I did think this at the time. I thought, wow, isn't it nice you have the luxury of having a mental breakdown right now? Like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I think I'm doing the right things, but it doesn't stop me from physically feeling and mentally feeling like I am drained. If I take a break, like I let the family down because you're relying on me for financial support. That's my responsibility. I didn't say it out loud, thankfully, but unfortunately I did think it. And then when she finally spoke after massive, giant tears, like the hyperventilating crying, you guys know what that emotion is, right? When you just uncontrollably sob. Once she finally got a hold of herself, in that regard, she could finally deliver the message that was making her sob, which was, I'm a single parent. And it's like, wow. So in that moment, my memory went back to the day that we got married. When I promised to her, in fact, I made an oath, not just with her, but with God, that I would be her full support. And then my memory went to the day she brought our firstborn child into the world and how I promised to be her complete partner in raising our children, not her kid, our children. And, it hit me. It's like, wow, I think I've been hustling to the detriment of everything that matters. And that was a real wake-up call for me.
Yeah, and I want to just stay there for a minute. Like in that moment, like I know you were probably like, what? Like it just came out of left field. But did you believe her in the moment, or did you try to go back and forth? Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, that type of thing. Like, how did that conversation go in that moment?
No, it was 100% acknowledgement. That schedule I just gave you is a legit schedule. It's insane. But that's like 3 hours of sleep a night. I am leaving the house before anyone's awake, and I'm getting home when everyone's already asleep. The only time I was basically interacting with my kids during that time period was if some of them were crying at nighttime, and like I would get up and pace the floor holding them. So when she said I'm a single parent, I'm like, yeah. I have a sister who raised 2 kids as a single parent before she got remarried. So I saw what that looked like. And as soon as my wife said it, I'm like, wow, we are married. And yep, you basically have to raise our kids the way my sister raised her two kids.
Let's take a quick break from the episode because I want to tell you something I've been building behind the scenes and why I'm asking for your help. So my first book, Money Moves and Mindset Shifts, publishes September 29th with Wiley. It's the framework I've been teaching for 8 years, finally in one place. Stewardship over scarcity, managing what you have so it grows into what you need. The same principles that got me from a struggling single mom to living in a new country with a business that actually sustains us. So pre-orders determine a lot in traditional publishing. First print runs, shelf placement, whether the books get seen by people who don't already follow me. So the window between now and September 29th is when that math gets decided. So if you want to help out, go to moneytalkwitht.com/moves and order your book today. Now back to the episode.
So no, there was no arguing on my part. To me, it was more of just the shock of having these two worlds collide where I want to mentally be a committed father and a committed husband, but I also want to, I'm listening to hustle culture, which is so ingrained, terribly ingrained into a lot of our society of, hey, to make more money, you hustle and grind, and your job is financial support and, ego, build your ego and make a lot of money, and that's success. And so like I have these two messages that in that moment just collided so drastically in my head that the message was very clear in that moment that, yep, something had to change.
Gotcha. And so as a result of that, is that the moment where you came up with the 3.3 rule?
Yeah, not in that exact moment. I wish it was a flip of the switch. And then the next day I went to a normal work-life balance, having work-life harmony, all that stuff. No, it still took a bit like, okay, I acknowledged the problem. I saw the problem. I wanted to solve it. But I mean, I'm on this roller coaster already. Like the bus has left the station and it's rolling. How do I turn the bus into like a luxury RV while it's still in motion is kind of what the process had to become. And so it took experimenting, like trying different things, a lot of research, a lot of articles read and books read. What are these people talking about work-life balance, which is funny because in hindsight, I don't agree with the phrase itself. I think of it as more like work-life harmony. But anyways, those people are out there. They've already written books on it. I'm not the first one who realized hustle culture was stupid. But yeah, no, it was a journey to get to the point. And then I slowly started piecing together some of these articles that I was reading and the different sciences and picking up on trends on these experts recommending certain, like working certain amounts of time and then looking at the trend and like, oh my gosh, they're all kind of following in the same range here. And then finding science studies and research projects that actually confirmed some of the gut findings from some of these thought experts. And so it took probably like 3 years of research before I finally had what I would have considered, hey, this is some science here of like the actual 3.3 rule.
Gotcha. So, I'm sure there are some entrepreneurs or small business owners listening right now that are having their 2 a.m. moment, maybe not exactly like yours, but similar feeling. And, they hear you when you say hustle culture is stupid. However, they're like, I can't take any breaks because I'm drowning right now. What is something you would tell them that they could do right now to change that based on your experience?
Yeah. So let me first give you an analogy, then give you some practical tips here. But I got into NASCAR a few years ago. And the analogy of NASCAR actually really applies well to how we work and how hustle culture wants us to work. Because you think about, so NASCAR is generally an oval and the cars, there's 40 drivers. And a lot of times it's like, okay, if I ask the question, who's going to be the fastest, who's going to win the race, who's the fastest driver? Well, you would think, oh, let's start with the car. The car is going to make the difference. Well, that's why it's NASCAR. They're all defined as stock cars. So they're all pretty similar. Then the driver. Well, the driver makes... Certainly, there's a difference between the top drivers and the ones in the other field or the rest of the field. But that is not as big of a deal as you might think it is. And so then I look at, okay, so if it's not the driver, it's not the car, what is the factor that really determines who's going to win the race? And before I get there, I say to myself, well, let's pretend hustle culture is in charge and says, hey, hustle and grind your way through the race. What does that look like? It means you don't take any breaks. You go as fast as you can with no breaks ever. Well, these cars are going up, getting close to 200 miles an hour on some of these super speedways. What happens is the tires of that car heat up. They start to lose traction, which means you have to slow down by default to even keep control of the car. And if the losing of the traction isn't enough for you to realize something's off here, the tires will shred off. I mean, anyone who's taken any sort of trip on the highway in a car with family, you see the shredded truck tires on the side of the road. If it's happening to truck tires, it's happening to cars going 200 miles an hour for 500 miles straight. And so you're like, okay, well, that method doesn't seem to work. So what is it then? Who actually is going to win the race? It's not the guy who can just go the fastest, the longest. It's actually the team who takes the most strategic pit stops, because that car needs refueled. It needs new tires. And so the car will come in and come to a complete stop while it gets new fuel and new tires. And then it goes back to speeding off. With that rhythm, you can technically drive as long as you need to. So the fuel and the tires is the equivalent of us in our world as business owners with brakes. We need space for our brain to reset, which refuels us. We need space to put on new tires that have the traction. You have to take time. You have to be intentional about it, because if you're like me, which I'm assuming most are, there's a never-ending to-do list. And most days you're hoping that you got enough stuff off your current to-do list than what was added during the day so that you're net positive. So there's no end of work to do. And that leads us to I got to keep going. But the reality is, if I'm saying I'm so busy, I can't even take a break, that's the same thing as saying I can't pause to get gas for my car so the car can keep going. We really do need breaks. And so some practical things to do. The first practical thing is, like, right now as you're listening to this, whenever you are, what does the rest of your day look like? Are you listening to this in your morning car ride to work? If so, first thing you do when you get into work, look at your calendar, look at the things you need to do, and pick an hour after about 2 to 3 hours of work and block it off. And when that hour shows up on your calendar, do absolutely no work-related activities. Just take a break. Go outside, go for a walk around the office, depending on when you're listening to this and the temperature outside, but intentionally take a break, and you will come back and your brain will be more reset than you've ever would have guessed. And if you're listening to this at the end of the day, then, when you get home, if you have a chance to look at your calendar and adapt it, or first thing tomorrow when you get into work, the most practical first step you can do is schedule the time and commit to literally taking an intentional break in between your focus blocks.
Yes. And I completely agree with that. I know back when I was in corporate, I was working myself to the bone because, hustle culture, even though I was salaried, so I didn't get any extra money for doing extra. It was just, you want to do a good job. You want to make sure all your job gets done. And so you just work. Well, it got to a point where I was on the bathroom floor one morning when I was trying to get ready, and it was because I was having an asthma attack. And I was like, after I was able to recover, luckily my oldest son and my little sister was still at home. They didn't go to school yet. So they helped me out there. But once I recovered, I said, you know what, Tiffany, if you would have dropped dead this morning, right now, your position would have just became open. They would have started the hiring process, and that would be all she wrote. Of course, people would be sad or whatever, but your position would go on. And so it was in that moment where I decided, I said, you know what? I'm going to start blocking off my 2 15-minute breaks and my 1 hour lunch. And I'm not doing anything work related during those breaks. And then if people want to meet with me, because I was in HR, then they'll have to wait till after my breaks. And so I used that time to, like you said, go take walks. And I even started like a little walking group because people started joining me on my walks. So yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that. And I'm so glad that you brought up that analogy, because that was a great way to drill it into hard-headed people like myself. Like, you need gas, you need your tires. You can't just keep going. You have to take those.
I built this business the old-fashioned way. Hard work and a whole lot of spreadsheets. Yeah, about that, I upgraded us to Odoo. Odoo puts everything we need, sales, inventory, accounting, on one connected platform. No more juggling systems, no more headaches.
So it all works together?
Exactly.
Odoo is the all-in-one business software that makes running and passing on a business easier than ever. Take your business into the next generation. Try Odoo free at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Necessary breaks.
Well, and I'm curious, Tiffany, if you think back on that time, do you feel like you ended up getting less done once you started intentionally taking those breaks?
No, believe it or not, I feel like I got more done. I felt like after I took those breaks, I started, I came back with a fresh mind. And so the things that I was stuck on, I'm sitting there looking at the screen like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? Once I took my walk and came back, I was able to work through those issues and just come back fresh. So I feel like personally, I got more done just working within my set hours, not working over, and taking my breaks.
Yep. Yeah. And that's how it plays out, right? But there's that concern. I mean, you kind of pose the question, like, when does the hunger for change be enough to actually make the change? I think as humans, we definitely resist changing what we're comfortable with. But it's absolutely that. Like, when is enough enough? I mean, I ask people to just think about these questions. It's like, if the only thing you ever do is work, what are you actually working towards? And think about all the hours you're putting in. What happens 3 to 5 years down the road? What is actually going to change, do you think? What are you building towards? And are you honest enough with yourself when you answer that question to realize nothing is actually going to change 3 to 5 years down the road? I mean, like, is the point really to work yourself so much that the only thing people remember about you is that you were always busy? Like, what kind of legacy is that you're leaving behind? When people stop and realize that, at least maybe get them to the point where they're willing to be like, you know what? This guy's so obnoxious. I'm just going to prove him wrong. Well, the only way to prove me wrong is to actually take the break and then tell me it didn't work. It's not going to happen. You're going to take the break. You're going to come back refreshed, and you're going to be way more focused than you would have been if you hadn't taken the break in the first place.
Yes, definitely. And with that being said, I kind of want to switch gears just a little bit because you are the owner or founder of Insight Tax, and you have a team of 220 people. Is that right?
Yeah, around 250 now.
250, and across like 30 states, many different states.
Yeah, team members in 30 states, clients in all the states.
Gotcha. And so with a team that big and you're talking about work-life balance or work-life harmony, how does that look as an owner? Like, are you telling your employees like, look, guys, go ahead and take these breaks? And then, are you like, how does that work? How is that working out?
Yeah. So whenever possible, we prefer to make policies for A players, which generally means they don't have to be super specific because A players pick it up. It's like, as an example, an A player code could be, hey, dress code for the company is first date appropriate. Would you be comfortable wearing it on a first date? Then you could probably wear it to work. B player policy would be, okay, please do not wear clothes that show your undergarments. We try to teach on principle and let them govern themselves. And so we teach the 3.3 rule, all new team members, there's a training that goes over the culture of it, how it works. We use Slack. And so on Slack, there's a specific emoji we created to let everybody in the company know that this person's on their 3.3 break. But no, we emphasize, in fact, my COO and I took the interns out to lunch yesterday. And one of the interns was like, I've never had a job where they like almost forced me to take a break. The other jobs were kind of like, how long have you been on your break? 13 minutes. Well, are you going to be ready to go? Are you going to be clocked in 2 minutes? He's like, what did he say? I almost feel indulgent on how long the break is. Like, hey, well, that's a good sign. That means you're coming back completely focused.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because I probably have some business owners listening that would love to scale to that. And they hear you saying take breaks and things, and they feel like they have to hustle to get there. And so I'm glad that you're sharing your experience where you're like, well, no, you can take your breaks and still scale your team. I think that's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, if I go back to the NASCAR analogy, you have owners of these teams, right? They're the ones funding it. average cost for a NASCAR team to run a race is like $1.5 to $2 million. So you would think the owner would be like, well, then when we're racing, you better be out there racing. Like, no, they understand the strategic nature of pit stops. It's the same for me. And I fought the same thing you're talking about, Tiffany. I fought that. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The science says if they take breaks, they'll get more done. It's kind of working for me, but oh man, my hourly rate of the entire company times the extra, basically hour and a half above the normal 15-minute breaks and hour lunch that some corporations do. I'm saying you're doubling that, Let's give them, out of an 8-hour workday, they're basically being paid to not work for 2 of the hours. That's a lot of money. And so I had to fight with that as well. And I'm telling you, on the flip side, once I implemented these rules, we grew like 492% in profitability of the company because it works. There's no way to say, like, if you're struggling with that, you just got to try it out. I promise it's going to work.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing is make sure you're having your people take the breaks that they need and not pushing yourself too hard. Because also another thing that we didn't mention is the psychological tax of all of that pushing too. As a owner or CEO or founder or whatever you want to call yourself, you're supposed to be thinking strategically. And it's going to be really hard to think strategically if you're constantly grinding it out. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So, John, I know we talked about the 3.3 rule on a previous episode. I'll make sure I link that. But if people were interested in learning more about this rule or more about you, how could they find you?
They could go to takebreaksworkbetter.com. or therealjohnbriggs.com. Both have information about the rule, have information about me.
All right, perfect. And I'll make sure I have all of that in the show notes. I think I may need to bring you back for another episode because there's a few more questions I didn't get to, but it's all good. I know you'll be back. So thank you so much, John, for sharing with my audience today.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.
Another app for inventory, one for CRM. Oh, don't forget accounting. Wait, which login was that?
Or you could use Odoo, one fully integrated system that does it all without the hassle. Ditch the app overload. Get everything your business needs on one platform. Try Odoo free today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.